Breaking news on WFLA Now.
We are live here at the Polk County Sheriff's Office where Sheriff Grady Judd moments away from speaking on Operation Trifecta, a record drug bust in Polk County. Nearly 150 pounds of drugs obtained in a multi-state operation, 137 pounds of meth, 5 kilos of heroin, and 7 arrests total. Hey there, everybody. JB Buno here with you live on WFLA Now. We are streaming live to the WFLA app, WFLA.com, and, of course, the WFLA Facebook page. This right here is a live picture from the Polk County Sheriff's Office where they have just set up the display for a press conference that's about to be getting underway here momentarily. Sheriff Grady Judd is going to be entering the room here in just a couple of moments to speak on this operation. There you see the enormous amount of drugs that were seized in this operation coordinated by the Polk County Sheriff's Office. As you see here, we're getting some details here just from the display, that being Operation Trifecta. You see there that there is a map set up on the right side of your screen, just showing a little bit of how the drugs have managed to get their way into Polk County, Florida. I believe that Sheriff Judd is about to step up to the podium here. We're just getting some shots here of the display that was just set up by deputies. Here are some of the mug shots that are now going to be made public by the Polk County Sheriff's Office in this massive drug bust. Again, I'm going to read through some of the stats that we have here, folks. 7 arrests total. And this is the largest seizure ever of heroin by the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Largest seizure ever, it being a total of 5 kilos of heroin. That's about 11 pounds. Of course, heroin being such a potent drug, that amount is considered to be a substantial amount. Again, a record haul by the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Also worth noting, 137 pounds of methamphetamine. That's what you saw that was packed up there in some of the shots that our photographer was just getting here live from the Polk County Sheriff's Office. They just finished setting up this display here moments ago. And again, Sheriff Grady Judd is moments away from stepping up to the podium where he's going to be addressing the public on not just the arrests of the 7 individuals here in Operation Trifecta, but also on the record amount of heroin taken off of the streets of Polk County, as well as 137 pounds of methamphetamine. So here you see some of the mugshots. There is a international component to this, as you saw there on the map that we were just seeing here moments ago. Mexico is a part of this. There you see there are some arrows there pointing to the flow of drugs that I'm sure that Sheriff Judd is going to be explaining in more detail, but the flow of drugs, of course, coming from Mexico into California, into other states such as Texas and Illinois before making their way into Polk County, Florida. So I'm sure that we're going to get a more detailed and thorough explanation of how the drugs managed to get here to Central Florida as soon as that press conference gets started. Again, letting the audience kind of build up here on Facebook Live, especially because we know that a lot of you want to hear from Sheriff Grady Judd the moment that he steps up to the podium. So hello there, everybody. JB Buno. Hope that everybody had a terrific Thanksgiving, a terrific Black Friday. It is Cyber Monday here. I know that a lot of people are shopping online today. It's a big day for online shopping, but we are live here from the Polk County Sheriff's Office with the breaking news of Operation Trifecta. Again, nearly 150 pounds total between methamphetamine and heroin taken off of the streets of Polk County. And actually there, if we go here full screen, I want to show it to everybody here full screen. On that table there is just a sample, just some of the drugs that were seized in this massive haul in those Ziploc bags there. We were zooming in there earlier to show you just some of the Ziploc bags. We believe that in there is some samples of heroin, samples from the bust itself, heroin, methamphetamine. And then on the bottom there, you see all the packages, the blue packages of methamphetamine that were seized in this record haul. Again, the largest seizure ever of heroin by the Polk County Sheriff's Office. That according to the press release sent out by the Polk County Sheriff's Office a short time ago, them calling a press conference here at the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Grady Judd, moments away from speaking here live at the podium, everybody. We have a quote here actually from Sheriff Grady Judd in advance of this press conference getting underway, and that quote reads, "These are extraordinarily dangerous illegal drugs, and as we have seen, the Mexican drug trade is extremely violent and deadly. Our detectives did an outstanding job of removing these drugs and dealers from causing future misery, violence, and death." That's the quote from Sheriff Grady Judd. Again, set to speak here momentarily. There you see, so that right there, in the blue packages we believe to be, of course, methamphetamine, 137 pounds of it. But that's not the most notable characteristic about this particular bust. It's actually the heroin that is considered to be the more extraordinary amount, 5 kilos total of heroin. That amounts to about 11 pounds, but of course, don't get too caught up in the numbers when you're talking about the difference between methamphetamine and heroin. Of course, methamphetamine is it's a drug that weighs more, so don't get too caught up in the fact that it's 137 pounds of meth. The most notable thing to take out of the press conference that's about to get underway, or out of this press release, this announcement by the Polk County Sheriff's Office, is the 11 pounds, 5 kilos of heroin that were taken off of the streets of Polk County. That is considered to be a very large amount of heroin and a record for the Polk County Sheriff's Office, everybody. So here, our photographer, Jamie Cook, zooming in on some of the shots here from the display that has been set up by deputies. Sheriff Grady Judd expected to be speaking here momentarily, everybody. See that a lot of you are joining us live on Facebook in the Facebook Live comment section. A lot of you, Holly Reese, Mary Mills, Gata Jones, Lori McNeil, David Batcher, Lori Maurer, Abdul Jones, Mike Laborda, so many of you that are commending the efforts of the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Many of you who are giving a shout out to Sheriff Grady Judd. Sheriff Judd, known for speaking his mind, I think is a fair assessment of his press conferences. He does not hold anything back. They are usually transparency usually isn't an issue with Sheriff Grady Judd as far as what he's feeling in that particular moment. He usually gives his unfiltered opinion of the state of things in Polk County and across the state of Florida, really across the United States. Sheriff Judd, not known for holding back when it comes to his views and opinions. So his press conference about to be getting underway here momentarily, folks. There you see the podium that is set up. There you see the displays that have been set up as well, in addition to some of the drugs there on the table that have been brought in to kind of demonstrate just how much, just the sheer volume of drugs that have been taken off the streets. Again, for those of you just joining us, the largest seizure of heroin ever by the Polk County Sheriff's Office. I believe that there's some chatter here on the left side of the room. I believe that Sheriff Judd is making his way into the room where he's going to be speaking here momentarily, folks. Of course, as soon as I'll be going away, and we're going to be going live to the podium here as soon as he enters the room. Again, 137 pounds of methamphetamine. I don't know. They don't state that as a record. So it's not believed to be the largest bust ever for methamphetamine in Polk County, but it is believed to be the largest bust ever for heroin in the history of the Polk County Sheriff's Office, against 5 kilos amounting to roughly 11 pounds of a very potent, very, very potent drug. So as soon as Sheriff Grady Judd enters the room here, we'll be going live to him. Again, his quote: "These are extraordinarily dangerous illegal drugs, and as we have seen, the Mexican drug trade is extremely violent and deadly." Let's go to the man himself. Here's Sheriff Grady Judd live.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with me today. We had a happy Thanksgiving, and we want to share that with you today. Our Thanksgiving was happy because we wrapped up and have completed an investigation that we started in April. As I lay out the details, you'll see we seized 139 pounds of methamphetamine and heroin, and we wrapped it with the single largest seizure of heroin in the history of the Polk County Sheriff's Office, and that was on Thanksgiving Day. Our folks from our undercover units saved a lot of lives when we seized this much, not methamphetamine, but heroin. But let me go over the details, and I'll give you a timeline, and then we'll go into some specifics. This all started in April of this year when we received 7 pounds of Mexican methamphetamine from Los Angeles. As you know, we have a porous border. The methamphetamine and heroin flow freely into this country because we don't keep out illegal aliens involved in trafficking in drugs. On May the 22nd, after the successful seizure of 7 pounds of meth in Los Angeles, we flew out to Los Angeles, where our undercover agents with our colleagues from California purchased another 22 pounds of methamphetamine. Then during July, our undercover folks received from California, Los Angeles, another 10 pounds of methamphetamine. Then on August 1st, we flew into Ontario, which is a suburb of Los Angeles, and there we, with our colleagues from California, arrested 2 individuals and seized 100 pounds of methamphetamine. That's right, Alvaro Carrillo, who is 34, on the right here, and Tafola Navarrete, who is 30. Both of them are illegal. Did you hear me? They're illegal. They're in this country in violation of the law, trafficking in 100 pounds of methamphetamine. No small amount of drugs. So for those who want to tell you that drugs are once again a low-level, nonviolent felony, understand that these guys illegally in this country were trafficking in 100 pounds, almost 50 kilos of meth. They were arrested, taken to the San Bernardino jail. Alvaro is still in, and we have conflicting information whether he's in under a $2 million or a $5 million bond with no ICE hold. Tafola has been released from the jail. That's right. He's been released from the San Bernardino jail. Even though he's an illegal in this country, trafficking in 100 pounds of meth, he's been released from jail. Can you believe that? Not released and deported, but released. This guy has not been reported to ICE as of this morning, and we're going to report him to ICE from here in hopes that we can get a hold placed on him in San Bernardino, California. That in itself is a train wreck. California is a train wreck. If you want to see how not to deal with criminals, go to California. If you want to see a place where criminals have more standing than victims, go to California. If you want to see where traffickers of methamphetamine are not held responsible why they bring this poison into the country to distribute all across the country to our children, go to California. It is terrible to think that you've got 2 folks here illegally, and they're not both locked up on ICE holes right now for trafficking in methamphetamine. When you look at our social problems in this country, you can tie the vast majority of that back to illegal drugs, and either directly obtaining illegal drugs or the theft and robbery in order to get money to buy illegal drugs. We dealt with the international ring, and I'm proud to say in this state and in this county, we hold people accountable for trafficking in drugs. Heck, we'll even come out on Thanksgiving and arrest you because it's that important. So let's fast forward. So our methamphetamine deal is over. That's done. And along the way, we hear, hey, there's a connection in Chicago that will sell heroin. And then we heard, well, there's another connection in Houston, Texas that will sell heroin. Well, guess what? About November the 7th of this year, we bought 1 kilo of heroin. And we bought that from a fella that we'll call Don Juan. He delivered to us in Polk County, Florida, from Houston, Texas, 1 kilo of heroin. This is a huge amount of drugs when we're used to seeing it by grams, by hits. And we know how dangerous heroin is of its own nature, and then along the way it gets cut with fentanyl. Well, in addition to that, we know that on Thanksgiving Day, he brought us another 1.25 kilos of heroin with his brother, Rene Juan Gonzalez. Rene is 32, Julio Don Juan is 34. So we arrested them at Walmart in North Lakeland. But this was the second deal of the day, not the first deal. That's right, we took down these folks from Houston, Texas, after earlier in the day, we took down the Chicago connection. Now keep in mind, we're working 2 separate heroin connections on the same day from different parts of the country. Susana Salgado Solis, we believe, drove the 3.25 kilos of heroin from Chicago. Francisco flew here in advance to set up the operation. So we know he flew in because we had conversations with him before Thanksgiving. Susanna drove here with her 5- and 6-year-old little girls and left them in a motel room while she went out to traffic in heroin. Now, it took us 3 hours because she didn't want to tell us anything before we figured out where the children were. By the time we got there, there was a Hispanic male with the children. We don't know if he was there the entire time because at first she told us her kids were by themselves. But in any event, DCF is taking custody of the children. We arrested the other male for false dialing of 911. We can't tie him to the dope case, so we're not speaking of him today. But anyway, the dope was driven down here with her 5- and 6-year-old children in the car. She's not talking to us, but she's a drug courier. Francisco is the guy who operated and coordinated and bragged of being able to make multi-state deals of heroin, and sure enough, that's exactly what he did. So here you have a California piece or operation, and then we did a Texas and Chicago, Illinois operation. This investigation is wrapped up. We don't anticipate any further arrest. Unless, of course, we can find out where our fella is that's no longer in custody for an ICE hold. But let's talk about what this represents on the street, and let's talk about what this deal represents as far as the hierarchy. We're in the top end of drug dealing whenever you're dealing in kilos of heroin. When you break this drug down, when you cut it and break it down as it's passed down through the sale process to the street user, what the street user is paying for this, it is approximately $4.6 million worth of meth after it's cut or stomped on and passed down and sold at the street level. $4.6 million. The heroin, the street value, is approximately $4.9 million when you look at $30 a hit on the street. All of this operation represents $9.5 million, approximate value on the street. So what does that tell us? That tells us that somebody is going to steal or rob or sell drugs in order to get that $9.5 million to use drugs on the street. Oh, by the way, they're not paying any taxes. No federal taxes, no state taxes. That's just pure profit as it moves in and out of the drug community. Oh, did I also tell you that when I ask, what are these people's other jobs? They don't have other jobs. All they are is drug dealers. Drug dealers and illegal entrants into this country. That's right. 3 of the people we arrested were not supposed to be in this country, but they were in this country trafficking millions of dollars worth of drugs that will eventually kill or addict people in this country. Now, why is it hard to take action against those kinds of folks? It's not for me. It's not for Brian Haas, our prosecutor, because we care about the people that are going to be addicted. We care about the people that would die because of the heroin. Now, we save some people's lives. We don't know how many, but there are people alive today and will be people alive Christmas Day that otherwise, by the time they got this heroin and overdosed on it, and or had a fentanyl overdose that was blended with it, would be dead. I'd love to tell you how many lives our detectives saved. I can't. I can just tell you that we took about $9.5 million street value worth of drugs off of the street. I can tell you that we seized the largest amount of heroin in a single seizure in the history of the sheriff's office in Polk County. I can tell you that this is a violent drug. It's a dangerous drug. Aside from the robbery and the theft and the burglary in order to obtain the drugs, people kill each other over this drug, and the drug itself is killing people. So, why there are those that want to decriminalize abusive, dangerous drugs, shame on you. It's addicting and killing our kids, and we're going to continue to battle against the people who want to addict our children, who want to illegally enter this country for the specific purposes of trafficking in drugs and committing crime. It's not okay. It's against the law. And while the majority of this country are law-abiding citizens, There are people like this who don't care if your children die. All they care about is the money they can generate. They don't care about who dies. They thought they were slick. They thought the cops don't work on Thanksgiving. Well, it was Thanksgiving for us. And it's Thanksgiving for a lot of families who will never know that they are going to celebrate the holidays this year with their loved ones who is alive, because we took the drug that would kill them or addict them and have them in the streets, creating hardship for them and their families away. Any questions?
Sheriff, do you think that people in Polk County were buying from these specific dealers?
These specific dealers were operating way up here. They were selling to us thinking we were major dealers. So the reality is all of this eventually trickles down to the street. But it starts in Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston. We think this is Mexican-made dope. Where it comes from, we don't know. But we know there are huge traffickers that are smuggling this deadly stuff across the border every day and killing people by the thousands in this country. And despite a few that want to say it's a low-level, nonviolent event and write it off, people dying from drug overdoses are still very important to us in Polk County. And people who sell this drug that causes overdose deaths, we're going to continue to lock them up where they should be locked up. So, will it end up in Polk County? Sure it would if we trickled it downhill. But at this level, theoretically, if we were a criminal doper, we'd be breaking this up and sending it all over Florida, Central Florida. We'd be sending it to our contacts in New York, to the Midwest, wherever we wanted to pass it back down, because from the kilos, we would sell ounces. And then the ounce people would break it down a little further. Okay?
Do you know if Francisco or Susanna had ever been to Polk County before?
I have no indication that they had been to Polk County before other than, talking dope with us.
How did your people connect with them?
They're very good at what they do.
Who else were illegal here? You said Alberta and Jose Juan, but who else? You said there were 3 illegal.
Yes. Francisco is illegal. Okay? And our 2 that we arrested in California, Tofola and Albarra. Now, folks, these folks didn't come across the border in search of a better life for their family. They came across the border illegally to traffic in drugs, to make money, to not care whether or not your children die, but to make money. These are the folks I'm talking about, that after they spend a very long time in prison, at our expense now, need to be deported and never, ever, ever allowed back in this country. And why in the world we accept people coming across this border from other countries to prey on and commit crime against innocent people, it's beyond me.
When you say we arrested these men in California, was it your detectives?
Our detectives were there when we took them into custody with the Inca Task Force, INKAR, Inca Task Force. And the arrests were in Ontario, which is a suburb area of Los Angeles.
When you said the largest seizure of heroin, how much was it?
Largest single seizure of heroin, it was, we got 3.25, 1.25 plus 1. What's that? A little over 5? 5 kilos
3.25, 2.25,
and 1.
So that's about 10 pounds?
About 10 pounds of heroin.
So the next step for Francisco Reina Duran, they're going to report it to ICE to be deported?
We are going to report them here if they haven't been reported in California. What ICE does from there is up to them. We learned this morning. We started searching around to get the update because they were arrested a while back. And we find the one guy is not even in custody anymore. And he had a $5 million bond, and he's not in custody. The other one's in custody. But even if he made the $5 million bond, you know, even if that's what happened, why didn't ICE have a hold on him? Why didn't he go to ICE custody? And why isn't there an ICE hold on this one? We'll see.
Is that a sanctuary city?
No, I don't think so. I think San Bernardino does hold.
So what happened with the kid that was found on the motel room?
The kids, they're in DCF custody today. And they will look for relatives in Chicago or someplace to turn them over to.
Sheriff, I'm hearing the frustration when you talk about the two that were taken in California. You wish they'd come to Polk County and you would have been the ones arrested?
Oh, brother, different story. They would have eaten pressed turkey on Thanksgiving in the county jail if they'd been here, and ICE would have had a hold on them once they were finished with the Florida prison system. Upon conviction, they would have certainly been deported. But the reality is this is huge criminal violations, federal, state, and I suppose that traffic in 100 pounds of meth, heck, in California ought to get you 6 months or so. I don't know. I don't know what their deal is out there. They don't know what their deal is out there. I am dear friends with a lot of sheriffs in California who are very frustrated with the inability to appropriately enforce the laws there. But that's another story for another day.
Sheriff, do you believe there are bigger fish to fry than these people?
Well, obviously they're not the ones that created the meth and the heroin. There's always somebody else.
Was this all on Thanksgiving Day?
The 100 pounds was before. The last two arrests were on Thanksgiving Day. That's where the Houston connection came. That's where the Chicago connection came.
Is there any relation with any cartel from Mexico? Do you know that?
I have no idea, but I have no idea about what cartel or where this dope came from in Mexico, but I know this dope originated in Mexico because that's where the overwhelming majority of all of our meth and heroin is originating from. It's pouring over the porous borders like water through the Rio Grande.
Were these drugs seized in those other states, or was it driven here?
The 100 pounds was seized in California. The other was seized here. Except I think 22 pounds, no, the 22 pounds might have been taken out there as well.
I'm guessing it was driven, not flown.
No, they do fly it.
Question, you have three different couples here from three different places.
Yes.
Are they connected or did they just happen to fall under Operation Trifecta?
No, what happened, the Texas, Illinois, and California people are not interconnected. They were just part of, when we did the California connection, that was kind of the end of that. But we talked to some Texas people who talked to some Illinois people, and that's how how we got onto Texas and Illinois.
So starting with California led to Texas and Illinois.
No, California was a totally separate deal. And then we heard of some heroin. It's kind of like when you go to your stockbroker and he says, well, we have this stock and that stock and this stock, and you buy this stock, and then you go someplace else, and they go, well, there's this better stock, and this is a illegal market world, and that's what happens. There is a market for drugs like there is a stock market for legal enterprise of money. There's an illegal enterprise world out here, and it deals with millions and millions and millions of dollars a day, and then it settles down. Like I said, obviously we didn't pay these street prices for it at this level, but by the time it settles down on the street, that's where your 9.5 million comes as an estimate.
Are you ever surprised that, we all here and know, like, if you're ever going to commit a crime, don't do it in Polk County. Apparently these guys don't use Google.
Oh, it's a news flash to them, but they're learning the hard way.
Can we talk a little bit about the level of heroin and meth in Polk County? Is it a bad situation here, and is it getting worse or better?
The Chicago people wanted to open up a pipeline into Central Florida. They thought we were their pipeline. So they didn't have, this group didn't have a connection into Central Florida, at least that they told us of, because they said, we want to open up a pipeline into Central Florida. So we were the Central Florida pipeline. Surprise. Newsflash. Happy Thanksgiving. Eat some pressed turkey at the county jail. But I'm telling you, folks, we were operating really high up in our undercover capacity, and they thought they had struck gold. I mean, the first trip down here, they bring us 3.25 kilos of heroin. I mean, in our world, that's huge. That is huge.
What would you say to people that say, at this level, you should be letting the federal government agencies dealing with these big sharks, you should be out on the street getting the small guy? What do you say if someone said that to you?
Yeah, I'd say if I did that, they'd been home eating turkey on Thanksgiving. We're out working. We arrest them no matter how big they are, and then we challenge our colleagues and hope they can go out and make a case bigger than ours, because we all work together in this world. We deconflict to make sure that this was not another law enforcement agency working the case too. So we all work together. We challenge each other, and I would tell them, y'all chose to eat turkey. We chose to seize dope, and that would be our challenge to them, to go out and make a bigger case, because we're all buddies. We ate turkey too, just later that day. Okay? It was a great day. Lives are saved, but it's huge for our team, who did a remarkable job. We got this one all wrapped up. If y'all know of anybody else that needs arresting for trafficking in drugs, we've caught up now. As soon as we write our reports, we're ready to go out next week and see some more drugs, put some more bad guys in jail. After all, it's the Christmas season. If you hurry up and let us arrest you for trafficking, you can eat pressed turkey or ham on Christmas Day. Everybody in the jail thinks turkey's square anyway, because we cut it off a loaf, you see. Okay? See y'all later. Take care.
So given, Sheriff.
JB Buno here with you. Again, that was the press conference by Sheriff Grady Judd. There you see the display that was set up for this press conference here. Again, a record haul of heroin, 10 to 11 or so pounds, approximately 5 kilos of heroin seized. You heard Sheriff Grady Judd speak at great length as to the details of the operation, how the drugs got from Mexico, California, Texas, Chicago, and Illinois to Polk County, Florida, how it was all interconnected. Again, part of a multi-state operation to get the 7 people responsible, 7 arrests made in total here. If you just joined us, if you missed portions of the press conference, you can of course go back and rewatch it. But here's some of the highlights: $4.6 million worth of meth, $4.9 million worth of heroin. Heroin being called a violent and deadly drug by Sheriff Grady Judd. He also had some very harsh words for the state of California and talked at great length about the illegal status of those arrested. He also made an interesting point that this operation was carried out on Thanksgiving. You heard him talking about it at the end of the press conference there, that they had a little bit of a delayed meal on Thanksgiving, talking about the deputies who conducted this investigation and conducted this drug bust. They had a little bit of a late meal on Thanksgiving because they were using Thanksgiving as a way to, using it as the day to make the bust here in Polk County. And then he said, talked a little bit about the international part of this. This was these were drugs that were made in Mexico, but made their way here into the United States, into 4 states total: California, Illinois, Texas, and Florida. More on the WFLA app, WFLA.com, and look out for Marco Villarreal's reports tonight on WFLA News Channel 8. More on the record bust in Polk County, Florida, made on Thanksgiving. Again, 5 kilos, approximately 10 to 11 pounds of heroin, in addition to 137 pounds of meth, 7 arrests total in Polk County, Florida. Everybody, I'm JB Buno. You can find the press conference in its totality on WFLA.com and the WFLA app, as well as here on Facebook Live. Thanks so much for being with us.